What's going on YouTube? Culturedog Sam Hatch back with another Blu-ray review, and this time we're going to go into the Vestron Video Collectors Series that Lionsgate's been putting out. And I've been meaning to check out a couple of these things. I know they did Return of the Living Dead Part 3, etc., and I've been slacking. So thankfully they sent me some copies of some things recently, and I figured, alright, let's finally check these out. The other one coming up is Beyond Reanimator, which I've watched, but I haven't watched all the special features yet, so I still need to finish that. I'll drop a review of that. But this one is tied in somewhat with that because it is produced by Brian Usna, and Stuart Gordon directed it, and it's a film called Dagon. I, like most people here in the States, discovered this tripping across on the Sci-Fi channel at one point, and I'd been a fan of Stuart Gordon's Lovecraft material, even though obviously it doesn't get all of the elements of the Lovecraft stories right, but you can tell he loves the source material, and it's going to eventually be a situation where somebody's going to make either Out of the Mountains of Madness or something with the proper time period and the proper slow burn kind of mentality, and it's going to pay off, and then everyone's going to be making them. But in the meantime, Lovecraft's been largely relegated to the low budget kind of indie fare, and Stuart Gordon's probably one of the better directors out there with a mind for capturing some of his spirit, and I love the Reanimator films, and I was somewhat apprehensive seeing that there was a Dagon movie, and but again, glutton for punishment. If it's Lovecraft related, I got to check it out, and I watched it, and I rather liked it, and I was like, oh wow, it's a Sci-Fi Channel movie, but it doesn't suck. What's up with that? Come to find out, apparently Brian Usna ran to Spain and discovered that there was a whole possibility of financing films from Spanish investors, and then that enabled him and Stuart Gordon to put together some projects, and this was a project that had meandered forever, forgotten. I know he wanted to do it instead of From Beyond as the follow-up to Reanimator, and just wasn't able to get it going. So, yeah, Dagon. It is a film that is not really an adaptation of the short story Dagon that H.P. Lovecraft wrote, but it is mostly an adaptation of The Shadow over Innsmouth, which is obviously connected to that because Dagon, the entity that these people worship, is certainly referenced within the story of The Shadow over Innsmouth as well. One of the coolest things about this film is that, unlike Lovecraft's story, which is, as most of his are, a total slow burn, this thing is one of those like shoots you right out of the cannon pictures, and that's great because for independent cinema, slow burn usually means a whole lot of nothing going on, and you're just waiting for that moment where the thing on the cover art that you saw in the video store finally shows up and makes it worth your $3 or investment. So, but no, this thing is just all kind of action and activity. There is a little bit of boating in the beginning, so I guess that's the tenuous connection to the short story. Dagon, as a short story, is just this guy, lost at sea, and then all of a sudden he's landed on an island that apparently came out of nowhere and discovers all sorts of creepy stuff going on there. And then The Shadow over Innsmouth is a story about a guy following his family's genealogy and tearing through New England and discovering the kind of places that nobody goes to, and one of them being this town called Innsmouth, where everyone's pretty reclusive and nobody wants to go there. So he slowly discovers why over the course of the story. And this one has Ezra Godden as your de facto Jeffrey Combs stand-in. A lot of people were complaining about his acting, but I had no problem with him or anybody else. Raquel Moronio plays his girlfriend. He's apparently a .com billionaire, and again, the attention to detail, if you listen to the commentary track, you hear Stuart Gordon and the screenwriter Dennis Paoli talking immediately about how by the time they started making this, the .com millionaires were starting to go bust, so they actually took the time to kind of write in that this character, Paul Marsh, played by Ezra Godden, is worried about his empire crumbling. And it's like, wow, that's like a little bit of attention to character detail that nobody else is putting into Sci-Fi Channel movies. So again, they're actually trying here. The special effects are pretty weak sauce. You're talking about television level, CGI. I mean, some of the stuff with the dream sequences with him, visiting this creepy underwater city or realm. That's pretty well done, but there's some kind of scenes of the boat underwater that looks pretty wonky, and a lot of like the look of things have just been achieved with filters. Not as bad as the old days with day for night, etc. But I don't know, it doesn't always feel like actual real when you're stuck in this horrible thunderstorm. It just almost feels like somebody just added an After Effects filter to make it look kind of grimmer, etc. It was probably filmed on a sunny day. But yeah, that said, it's cool. And because it was financed by Spain, they moved the story from New England to the coast of Spain. And within a hot minute, all these people that are on this boat, their lives are upended. A storm rolls in, the boat's crashed upon some rocks, and then Paul and his girlfriend Barbara have to go ashore, and they land in this town called Imboca and discover a bunch of weird kind of people. And they're very uncommunicative and shady looking. And I like how it avoided a lot of cliches right away and just kind of went in unexpected territory. There's a bunch of like creepy fishermen that are nearby, and he's trying to beg their help to go rescue his friends, and yeah, they actually help him out. It's really like kind of counterintuitive. But yeah, so it's got a vibe if you like things like The Wicker Man, etc. This isn't quite as artful or folksy as that. But they quickly land at the town's hotel, and the innkeeper there is a really sketchy, creepy, bug-eyed, starey-looking dude, and things are a little fishy, so to speak. And Paul realizes that he's in over his head. And there's a large portion of this that Stuart Gordon is very proud of, because it pretty much adapts a section of the short story wholesale, in which the main character is stuck in this hotel, and these kind of interesting townsfolk are creeping around and trying to get in his room. And it's actually pretty well written and entertaining piece there. A lot of action in there for H.P. Lovecraft. And I remember it being really tense. So that stuff happens like it's really front loaded in this film. And then a lot of the stuff that in the story where he learns about the history of the village and stuff actually comes later. So that was a kind of neat little bit of script writing to kind of just shoot you out of the cannon, whereas the story was just all exposition. It was just person after person just vomiting forth details and histories, etc. So they decided to keep one character to do that, played by Francisco Rabal, who is the weird old villager that knows too much for his own good, and he pulls aside the stranger and warns him and gives him a history of the island. It's cool and really effective. I like the whole kind of flashback sequence. And there's also another woman played by Macarena Gomez who Paul keeps encountering, and you're not quite sure what's going on with her, and slowly but surely you start to determine the motives of all of these people, and it goes in a kind of cool, dark direction from that point on. Again, just the writing and the attention to character, it was just the effort was put into it, you could see, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that's farmed out to the Sci-Fi channel. So I appreciated that. And watching it again, yeah, I enjoyed it just as much as I did the first time, and it stands up. It's lesser Lovecraft, but actually, I mean, it's probably truer to the spirit of Lovecraft than the Reanimator films. But the kind of dodgy CGI and everything kind of holds it back a little bit. And those films, even the special effects that are stop motion and Brad Reanimator and stuff, is just it's so lovable. Yeah, so it's hard to place this above those films, but in terms of sheer Lovecraft, this is one of the better ones. So it was nice to see it. Again, the Vestron Video Collectors series kind of implies that it's recapturing the glory of the olden days of renting these things on VHS, but this is actually a newer product. I saw it for the first time in the 2000s, and so this isn't gonna when 2002 was when this originally came out, so it's not going to remind you of renting videos in the 80s. But that said, it's nice to have it on Blu-ray. This is number 16 in the series, and it comes with a slip cover and the same artwork on the inside. Looks like Justin Osborne did it, so it's good to see he's still getting work in the wake of the controversy of his plagiarism for many heavy metal album covers where he was snipping off bits of Frank Frazetta and Boris Vallejo paintings, etc., and repurposing them, old movie posters, etc. Sorry to bring up some controversy there. Yeah, it's actually really cool. A lot of Cthulhu-esque imagery on here. So yeah, if you are a fan of Stuart Gordon and or a fan of Lovecraft, check it out. So I'd heard a couple people complaining about picture quality, about it looking a little too waxy, though too much DNR applied. Yeah, I don't know what this thing looked like in cinemas. It just felt digital from the start to me. And my only history with the film is watching it on standard definition cable on the Sci-Fi channel. So seeing it on Blu-ray was enough of a revelation. I had no complaints really about. There was a couple bits where there was some noise in the darkness and the darker spots of the image, but the close-ups and everything, there was enough detail in characters' faces and pores, etc. So it wasn't an entire waxy mess, and I really had no problem with the visual presentation at all. I mean, it's not a very contrasty picture. It's just very kind of murky overall. It does have some punch though, and occasionally some colors pop through. Yeah, no problems with that really at all. So I don't know, the fervor, over it was, maybe warranted, but not in my book. The one thing that did irk me was the soundtrack. On the one hand, the 5.1 mix, which is rendered here via DTS HD Master Audio, is very inventive. It's got a lot of aggressive surrounds, but the surrounds are way, 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 way too hot on this thing. And even the sound effects in the mains are like a little bit too loud for the center speaker. So if you adjust the volume for dialogue, when stuff goes down, it's going to be like really, really loud. So like dynamic range, but taken to an extreme. And the surrounds are just so hot that they actually drown out the mains a lot of times. There's scenes with the character standing grounded named Boca with just rain coming down, and all you can hear is just rain. Like the entire soundstage is pretty much behind you. So unfortunately, if you really want to enjoy the soundtrack for what it is, and it's actually, the mix is a little wonky overall, but at least it's creative. And I like there's a lot of creepy sounds and everything around you. And I've heard other people say, yeah, it sounds like they're right next to you. Yeah, because the surrounds are so hot. Like things that are supposed to be like creepy sounds, like down a hallway, like, kind of back in the distance, are like right in your ear. Yeah, way, way, way too hot. So unfortunately, if you really want to enjoy this for what it is, you're going to have to turn your surrounds down, which is always annoying. I don't want to kind of organize my setup just to serve the needs of a particular film release. But yeah, it's just blazing hot. That said, the music was cool. Carlos Casas did it, and it was had a cool, symphonic, operatic vibe for it, especially one character's theme. Yeah, it was cool. I liked it. It really matched the whole kind of Lovecraftian vibe of the source material. And so yeah, the music was good. Yeah, the sound effects and everything were good. It was just mixed weird, and I don't know how this particular, if it was mixed that way in theaters or when I watched it on Sci-Fi, I was probably just watching it on a TV with stereo, and didn't really notice much about the sound design. But yeah, sadly, so just lower the surrounds a little bit, and yeah, maybe you can enjoy it. But yeah, otherwise, the dialogue's a little bit too low and just drowned out by everything else that's going on around it. When you do have everything kind of balanced, like the dialogue's fine, really. There's no major problems with it. But yeah, so that's it. Special features are cool, some of which are ported over from an earlier DVD release, which I never had, but there's some new stuff on here as well. There's a commentary track from Stuart Gordon and screenwriter Dennis Paoli, and it's cool. That's fun. You get to hear about them telling the story of how this concept originally came about and what they had to do to adapt it, and talk frankly about Lovecraft stories and the challenges of adapting them to cinema. And of course, all the interesting tales about spending time in Spain, making the film, and Dennis, mentions that he was able to work with the actors and things, things that normally a screenwriter doesn't get to do on a film. And then the other soundtrack is Stuart Gordon with Ezra Godden, the star of the film, who everybody says is just like a poor man's Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, again, I had no problem with him. I thought he was pretty effective. So you hear some of the same stories overlap when they're talking, but not quite as many as you'd think. So that was entertaining. Again, if I had to choose one, I would choose the commentary with Dennis and Stuart Gordon. There's some interviews. There's Gods and Monsters, which is about a 22-minute interview with Mick Garris and Stuart Gordon. Very cool stuff. Again, you're going to hear some of the same stories you've heard in the commentary tracks. But having someone like Mick Garris moderating it, it's definitely watchable stuff. And then there's another roughly 20-minute interview piece called Shadows over Imboca, which is just a straight one-on-one talking head interview with Brian Yuzna. He's great. He just reminds me of like my friend's dad or something like that. Just real affable character, and cool hearing him tell the tales of the troubles of trying to get films made, especially at the time of this coming out in the early 2000s. Like the whole 80s independent horror cinema thing and ceased to be, and you got to find money where you can find it. So it was pretty cool that he discovered the kind of Spanish film market and was able to make some films, and they're actually well done too. Go figure. You can actually try and make a quality film instead of just peddling out junk and then hoping to sell it on the name of a goofy title or a stupid bit of poster art, etc. So kudos. And then there's Fish Stories, which is an 18-minute piece, which is great because it's S.T. Joshi, who is a Lovecraftian mastermind. He wrote Lovecraft's biography and has been involved in a number of Lovecraft-related pennings over the years. It apparently has a counterpart kind of interview on the Beyond Reanimator disc, which I'm dying to check out too. But yeah, he actually reads a little bit of Lovecraft and then tells you a lot about the history and so I didn't want to tell you too much about the story. We'll let him do it because he's the expert. And yeah, that one I particularly loved. Then there's a bunch of older 4:3 ratio archival interviews with Stuart Gordon, Julio Fernandez, who's one of the producers, Ezra Godin, Raquel Moronio, Francisco Paco Rabanne, and some B-roll footage. The one whole kind of package is about 21 minutes. And most of the interviews are about like 3 minutes to 6 minutes within that. There's a vintage EPK, which is also about a half an hour too. So that was pretty cool. Also 4:3 ratio, so older stuff ported over. And there is a conceptual art gallery piece, which is 9 minutes of slideshow imagery from artist Richard Robhorst. That was really nice. And then further slideshows, there's a 9-minute slideshow of storyboards, and then there's a 5.5 minute roughly still gallery of stills from the set. And then there's also a theatrical trailer, which is about 1 minute and 19 seconds. So yeah, it was my first foray into the Vestron Video Collector series, and again, I'm not holding the soundtrack against the series itself, because I listened to the Beyond Reanimator one on the same system, and that sounded pretty good. It had some overdone surrounds and stuff like that, but no, it was well balanced, and the mix was good. Things are just wonky in this particular mix, and it may have been just handed to them that way. But yeah, I got no problems really. I mean, I know people are complaining about the way they've been doing the films, and that these aren't up to snuff, compared to what Scream Factory and Arrow's been doing, but I had a good time with this. I had a good time with it when I saw it on the Sci-Fi channel, and it's got a cool kind of bit of twistiness at the end there, so I appreciate that. I appreciate anything with like a little bit of a dark heart in it for horror fiction, and anything apocalyptic or along those lines I love. Yeah, I'm definitely psyched to have Dagon on Blu-ray, and it's nice to have some special features along with it as well. So that's it for this review. Hopefully you guys had a good time, and I'll be back with some more goodies shortly. Cheers!